Hello, I'm Carrie Gard, and welcome to Tea Time with Tech Founders. I have started this show as I have wonderful founders that I come in contact with all the time who are building amazing products, and I want their stories. But I think it's really selfish to ask for their stories without them being able to share it with the world. So I started a podcast because what better way to share stories than through a great storytelling avenue in terms of live streams. So if you're here with us live, welcome. We'd love to have you in the comments. Let us know that you're here. Give us a wave, and then we look forward to your questions. It's the beauty of being live is that it's interactive, and we get to hang out with you as much as you get to hang out with us. I'm super excited for this show. I have Dan and Ellen Armsden with me. We have been connected for the last few years since we've moved to Guernsey, and my husband has been able to partner up and do some great work for them as they bring this product to the world that they're working on. I can't wait to share their story. Ellen, Dan, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kerry. We're delighted to be with you. So thanks for the invite.
I'm so excited to have you guys. Before we get into how y'all got started, why don't you tell us first what Crewdentials is? What's the product and what does it do and who it's for?
Yeah, so the product was a couple of products, but really what we're trying to do within Crewdentials is change the way credentials are managed within the maritime industry. So we've got two products. One is a solution for crew to keep all their qualifications and their information to date and organized in one place. And the second is a business workspace to help with like process automation and to streamline tasks for businesses.
It's a wild west out there in terms of crew management, from my understanding, in that, can you give us a little bit of background on the industry? Because I know that my listeners aren't going to be, or there are a bunch of Americans who live on a giant, giant continent and don't understand this whole boating and island thing. So can you help us share why this is so imperative that this tool exists for these folks?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want me to sort of run through sort of how we came up with the idea and sort of how it all sort of came together?
Yeah, let's go there. I was going to wait, but yeah, let's just dive on in.
Okay, well, just to start off with, just give me a bit of background about the maritime industry and perhaps other industries that are sort of heavily regulated and require sort of professional people or certificated people to work in it. So the maritime industry is largely supported by seafarers, the qualifications to fulfill the roles on board the vessels. And these seafarers, they move from one job to the next, and they've got to share their qualifications, their data with lots of different businesses throughout their career. And you imagine these seafarers won't just have one or two certificates or qualifications. They might have over 20, 30 qualifications they need to take with them. The industry at the moment is very sort of prehistoric in some respects, where you need to take your original copies of your certificates with you when you travel on board these vessels. This is largely due to the different jurisdictions around the world. Some aren't as sophisticated with technology as other jurisdictions, so they need to see these physical copies. So this is sort of the problem that we're trying to address. There's other companies trying to do a similar sort of thing. But that's sort of a little bit of a background about the maritime industry. Is there anything else you want to add to that side at all?
No, I think you covered it succinctly, which is good.
Yeah, it's really crazy how these seafarers have to move through from the next job to the next job and how they get hired, and so it feels very disjointed, and you are all there to help just streamline that documentation and keep people's information safe too. I think in a world that we live in, having worked in the cybersecurity industry now for many years, this is definitely needed to make sure to keep their information safe as well. So I love what y'all are doing. I'm here for it. Why don't you tell me, I'd love to hear first, before we dive into how you founded Crewdentials, your backgrounds and story of your careers. So, what did you do before Crewdentials?
So I'm an English solicitor by trade. I've worked as an in-house counsel for a large international business for longer than I care to admit, actually, in the decades as opposed to the numbers of years. And one of my kind of real deep interests is data protection. And kind of moving from having to provide lots of data to lots of different people to kind of being more of a kind of a sort of a user-centric model of being able to prove something about yourself, but without actually having to provide the evidence. So that came, that's kind of come over the past couple of years, really, mainly since I've kind of started working with Crewdentials. I was lucky enough actually that sort of this was a business that Dan and I had been talking about for a very long time in terms of kind of the maritime certification, seafarer certification, and it kind of brings together the kind of the fairly geeky but quite what we believe to be quite exciting as kind of parts of our two jobs. So kind of segues into what Dan brings to the table.
Yes, so my background's really maritime through and through. I started when I was 15, 16 as a sailing instructor, then went off to university, did a degree in naval architecture, worked on board vessels for about 5 years at sea, so I was a seafarer, and that's where Ellie joined me for a couple of years too. So I have a seafaring background, and then we came ashore when Ellie wanted to pursue the legal career. I got a job within a ship management company, and within that company, we owned, I think it's about 300 vessels. There was lots of different regulations surrounding each of those types of vessels. I think with my maritime background, and I've always been a bit keen on technology. I'm not a coder, but I like to sort of dabble with Excel and sort of like make things move and do stuff really. So I was always I think my background and those sort of interests sort of carved out a role within that company for me. So I eventually became head of the crewing team and the technical team. And I was really keen to try and sort of change the way my team were managing the processes of getting these qualifications from the seafarers, doing those checks and inputting that information into the systems. And we were quite, I'd say, advanced as a company compared with most businesses, but you still have the likes of, you send the PDF form to the seafarer, they'd have to complete it. You take that information, manually put into another system. And then we had our own system to manage, but the client might have a separate system that we had to assist with too. And that was one business, and there's a huge amount of inefficiencies, repetition about just getting the data and putting it into the system. But there's another element to it, which was these qualifications, because the maritime industry is truly international. You have a set number of qualifications that are understood internationally, but each jurisdiction may issue them in a slightly different format or call them something a little bit different. So there's a huge amount of confusion there, where my team was asking me, what is this qualification? Is it suitable in place of this qualification? And is this seafarer qualified to work on board this vessel? And that's like an isolated case really within the business I worked at. But if you replicate this all the way around the world, it's a huge problem. And we were advanced in what we were doing at that company. So off the back of that, sort of leading into the next bit, if it's all right, Kerry, where it all came from.
Yeah. No, that's where I want to go. So now I have both of your stories. Now it's like, okay, where did this idea come from? It sounds like Ellie mentioned you guys have been talking about it for a while. So what did those initial talks, just bouncing the idea around, sort of look like? And how early before you actually incorporated was that?
Yeah, for sure. Sounds like there's a bit of static on your mic, Kerry. I don't know if it's all good, but yeah. So the whole background really sort of started from my time sort of working at that business and seeing those inefficiencies. I looked for all these different solutions that might exist, what we could do to bring into the team to really sort of help improve things. And I came up with a few ideas and different systems that made a difference, like a little portal for the crew to upload their information and do it that way. But ultimately that confusion still existed, where people couldn't understand what these qualifications were, and ultimately relied on sort of specialists within the company to identify them. I think the real sort of light bulb moment was when we had a big new build project. It's a very nice, large yacht, about 110, 150 meters being launched. There's about 35 crew on board, and we need to onboard these crew as fast as we could. So my team were doing the best they could, but ultimately sort of it fell down to me to carry the can to get this project over the line. And I was up till early hours in the morning, sort of looking at all these different sheets of paper, the matrices to say what's required for the role, 2 different laptops on the go, lots of different paper. And Ellie came down and saw what was going on and said, what are you doing? This is, surely there's a system that can automate a lot of this. And at the time there wasn't. And that's why we thought, right, okay, maybe there is a better way to do this. And it all came down to us sort of looking at what I was doing, my role was doing, and if there's any way we could automate a large part of that and replicate it for different businesses. So that sort of led us to the idea of essentially like computer vision, or a way to actually scan a qualification, like we go to if you're using like an airline, and you sort of scan your passport and it recognizes your passport and extracts the information. We thought, surely if they can do that, there must be a way we can actually train a model to recognize these types of certificates. And then if we can do that, there's any number of workflows we can build off the back of it. And this sort of led to Ellie and I sort of coming up with different ideas, and ultimately broke it down to like a 3-stage process. We spoke to some developer friends of ours that said, no, that can't be done. It's way too complicated.
And there's maritime businesses saying, oh no, it can't be done because all of the certificates are issued in different languages. Well, it's all in English, but from different jurisdictions with different formats, with a logo in one corner or a logo in the other corner. So pretty much everybody we spoke to said, no, it can't be done. You definitely can't do it.
No. And then we're looking at AI solutions at the time, and everyone's saying you need thousands of copies of the same certificate to even get accurate results about what that certificate actually was. And I know AI has moved on a long way since then, but at the time, those were the limitations with AI. So we came up with an idea, and through a mutual friend, got introduced to James Benz, our co-founder. And James was really excited by this project because he'd been wanting to use like computer vision within a project, and most of his customers hadn't really come up with those sort of projects. So when he heard about this, before we even started speaking to him, he'd already got going on the project before actually winning the contract. And it was amazing because he was the first person for us to sort of understand what we're trying to do, and believe that actually there's, without any sort of guarantees, we think there's a possibility we might be able to create this thing.
Oh my gosh, a lot of no's.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of no's. Yeah, a lot at the start, and it's really nice that we persisted. I think a little bit about Ellie and I. We've always had lots of different ideas, business ideas in the past. I think Ellie's best one was way back in, I think it's 2002, 3 or something like this. The idea of when mobile phones were pretty primitive then, and Ellie said, why can't we just put everything on a mobile phone? We can go and pay for things on a mobile phone. And I thought, this is brilliant. This is
that came out because I would generally forget to take either my phone or my wallet out, and I thought, wouldn't it be easier if you could just take one thing? And then started looking at things like near field communication and things, which it turned out I think somebody out in Japan was already kind of looking at this way of being able to pay using your mobile phone. But yeah, I think that probably would have been totally utterly beyond our stretch of technological skills at that point. But we were kind of lucky really that probably 16, 17 years later, we identified this problem, which is seafarer credential management and compliance scanning, these documents. No solution existed. And we were very, very fortunate to find a business partner that could that kind of shared the vision and was actually technically capable of building it for us, which is, impeccable timing.
Amazing. Yes. That's why I love founder stories. I do need to ask, because I'm a little nosy and I can't help myself. And husband and wife partnership, how's is it like, my husband and I work together all the time. I love it. Is it like, has this always been a dream? It sounds like you guys have always been trying to find a way to like do a startup and work together. Has that been the case?
No. So the funny thing was that Dan and I hadn't actually been a couple for very long, and I went to work on the yacht that he was working on. So he was kind of lead deckhand bosun, which is kind of sort of the exterior staff looking after sort of the navigation and the sort of exterior maintenance of the boat. And I was basically a deckhand stewardess, which is probably its entry level stuff on these yachts. So technically Dan was my boss for the first, I don't know what that was, about a year or so on the boat. It was just a complete baptism of fire because it was a new relationship, living in a cabin in this wonderful super yacht, but the area for the crew is fairly minuscule. We did that for a couple of years, and we realised that we actually worked pretty well together. We have a very blunt and open and honest relationship. So we knew that we could work together. Obviously, kind of everybody develops in their career in kind of different ways. You get different ways of working, and we've certainly had to learn that we both do things in a very, very different way, but actually we both do it to a kind of, it suits each of us in the best way possible. So there's been a lot of learning on that, and also the need to do things separately a little bit sometimes. So we've got the office at home, we've got the office in town, sort of in the main, the main metropolis of St. Peter Port of Guernsey. And we learned probably about this time last year that actually spending 9 to 5 sat next to each other every day and then going home in the car together and doing dinner was actually too much, that we needed that sort of time apart slightly, because otherwise you get home and actually exactly what the other person's done all day, who they've seen for coffee, whether they've been out for a run, who they met for lunch. So there's not any kind of that kind of the evening banter to lean on. So, but I think we manage it pretty well, actually. I think that's possibly partly the fairly blunt, the blunt and honest relationship that we've got, which is, we're very lucky.
Yeah, I think the other side of it as well, we're very lucky that we've got a strong relationship. And when previously we worked together, when it was difficult times on board the vessel, it was really stressful times. I think that would have put most couples in a stressful position where they might have had a few bust ups or something. But we actually, in those times where it gets really tough, we sort of tend to pull together really well, work together. We realise actually there's no point getting each other's throats at this point. Let's just carry on and get through. And it's similar things have happened in the business in the last sort of 12 months. It's been sort of tough times, and actually those times we never seem to take it out on each other. It's always actually coming together closer to actually trying to overcome problems. So I think we're quite lucky in that respect.
Haven't killed each other yet.
No.
Oh, I love it. Yes to that. And just the story of how you two work so well together, and then that partnership with James too. I think it's just it just seems to all jive really well. So, and you all bounce each other out really well. Let's talk about. Oh, go ahead, Ellie.
No, I was just going to say actually that having James as our third business partner is brilliant, because he brings an entirely different dynamic to the relationship as kind of co-founders, because there are certain things that he and I are more aligned on and certain things that he and Dan are more aligned on. So typically you've got, like, it's never kind of 2 versus 1, but I think it's actually, I think it feels like you've got somebody that can sort of explain to the other person why you're thinking about something slightly differently. And I think it becomes less about kind of 1 versus 1 and more of a collaborative approach, actually having a third person in the co-founder team, and also somebody who is kind of a couple of decades younger than us and thinks quite differently about certain things. And maybe that comes from kind of the coding software development brain. Don't know, but it's just a great dynamic.
Developer brains are incredibly helpful. I can attest to that. Let's talk about where you are now. So wait, before I get there, let's back up for a second. So you have this idea, you have a partnership. Were you all still working for other things and started, or did you immediately all quit your jobs and get into it? Like, what was sort of the early days of standing this thing up?
Yeah, it's a good one. That I think we did a lot of research, listened to podcasts, read books, understanding what the options we've got to actually sort of pursue this idea. So originally we spent a little bit of money on the proof of concept to see if this whole computer vision thing, like the ability to automate a lot of the tasks, has even got legs or not. So Ellie and I set aside a personal budget that, right, let's just put this at it. If this works, or if there's any positive signs from this, then it's got legs. And if not, okay, let's get back to the drawing board. But at this particular point, I'd already quit my job, my full-time employment. I wanted a bit of a change anyway, so I had set up 2 businesses. One was Crewdentials. The second one was a consulting business. So the consulting business, I was able to do that in addition to Crewdentials to start with, just get some income coming through. Ellie was still full-time legal side as well, so we both had jobs, but we were all sort of like looking at what we could do with Crewdentials, and James was in a similar sort of position where he's very fortunate to be a software contractor. So he had a few contracts on the go. We had some spare time, like myself, to really dedicate to working out what we can do with Crewdentials.
And actually, at the start, it was so Dan doing his consulting work. Crewdentials was kind of a do it on the side and see how it goes, with kind of the hope that it would turn into something we could both do full time, but not really. We weren't sort of hanging our hat on it. It kind of grew quite organically, which I think is perhaps a little bit unusual in terms of a software as a service startup, because there's a lot of the time you can raise an incredible amount of money on the back of an idea, which just the characters of Dan and I, that wasn't what we felt comfortable in doing. We always quite like to know that you've got sort of authenticity and something a little bit proven before you kind of put anybody else's cash at risk, really. So that was 2019. And so then COVID happened, which was all good fun. But during that time, we carried on sort of building the product, iterating a little bit, get brought out to the first product, which was our Crew wallet in August 2020. In a way, COVID helped a little bit because James he was sort of traveling a little bit at the time. But because of all the restrictions on travel, he was sort of stuck I think he was in a farmhouse in Brittany somewhere in France. Couldn't really travel anywhere, so he cracked through a load of work. So I suppose that kind of helped us a little bit, didn't it, at the time? And that kind of, we self-funded it throughout 2020 through my work and sort of Dan's consulting work. And then we were fortunate enough, we live, as you've said, Kerry, on our little island of Guernsey, and just very fortunate there is an incredible network of angel investors who are willing to talk to you about ideas and how to progress. And then sometimes that is followed by a check, which is incredibly valuable, obviously, both in terms of the cash that it provides, but also kind of the what that enables you to do to be able to do this full time, as opposed to putting some time aside at evenings and weekends to try and do it. So that's where we got. So it's 2020.
Okay, so once you got investment money from angel investors on the island, you were able to then quit your jobs, and now you're all full time.
Not quite. So like it's actually been quite a slow build really for us. I mean, we've been going for coming up to 4 years now, but the first 2 years were quite I'd say slow sort of build. There was James was working part-time, I was working part-time, but what we had is Ellie and I had sort of put in a reasonable amount of most of our savings really into sort of building up the business. Just those running costs that you need to pay, even just like to explore ideas. At the same time, Ellie came up with the name Crewdentials, which is genius, absolutely brilliant. Everyone keeps saying how much they love the name. And when we realised that, as soon as we start marketing, we thought actually we need to protect this. So we spent so we spent a fair bit early on IP protection. So we got trademarked the name in most places internationally now. So that took a lot of our budget initially, but we were quite confident of the business, and it's worth doing that early on. So really within that first year, we were bootstrapping the business for sure. Then we had 2 angel investors come on during late 2020, mid 2021. So with that amount, James and I were still working part-time, but starting to get paid a little bit from the business, not a lot, but a little bit. So we were able to reduce down that workload from different businesses. But it really sort of changed in, I think it was 2022. We realized actually we're getting some traction. We got our first paying client on board. So now we have a product that actually people want to be using, which was great. So at that point, it's like, right, we've got the trajectory set up. This is where we want to go. Let's raise some decent cash, build up the team, and go for it. So that sort of took us into 2022.
Oh my gosh, that must have been such a moment. Like validation, clients, yes. I know the feeling well. So where are you now then? So you have a few you have a few clients, you have some investment. Where are you now? Where are you trying to get to?
Yeah, so 2022 was really full gas. Let's go for it. So we built up the team, got the office, and it was really good. So we got more paying clients on board during this process. Absolutely brilliant. But what we've sort of realised, and we sort of, even though things were going well, didn't really feel the trajectory is where we thought we would be at that particular stage. So we, as 3 founders, looked at this and said, right, let's look at some timelines, let's put them in place. And within this funding runway, if we're still not reaching these targets we've set ourselves, then let's ask questions why, and maybe look quite, critically at the business and realize why these things aren't maybe going our way. So throughout 2022, the start was great. It was all going well. Lots and lots of interest. The CRM's got over 200, I think, really good qualified leads in there. But we're just noticing it's taking a long time to convert these leads. So they were saying, this is great, much better than what we've got. Now's not the right time. Come back in a few months. Because I think what we've built, the 2 products we built, one is the solution for Crew, and that's always going to be free for Crew because we want them to store their qualifications, keep it organized. We get the revenue from the business workspace. So it's something almost like an HR solution where businesses can gather the data from Crew, do some checks, look at the reports and produce things like letters and contracts and that sort of side. And we realized that the growth was slower than what we wanted. We looked at this quite strategically and realized probably a couple of things. One is we're aiming our targets on clients that are probably out of our reach, like the big flagship clients, and really going for these big ones that have incredible, very dated systems that are very, very comprehensive and feature rich, but they're very slow, very archaic. So when we speak to them, they say, yes, we want to move, but we need this feature or we need that feature, and it needs to do this. So it's quite a big sell. We weren't really focusing on the smaller clients that are actually still using things like Excel to manage all their Crew documents. And when we changed our attention to focus on these smaller clients, it was much easier to sell because they've got a smaller team. They're using pretty horrible stuff that everyone's not happy with. The risk of deleting the data in there as well. So it's quite an easy sell to say, yeah, let's move across onto something like Crewdentials. So that was one of the big things we noticed. The second thing is we still want to be working with these big companies, but like how can we start working with them? And we realized that the product we originally built is very, very big. It's very comprehensive, but to try and work with these businesses, we need to be looking at just the smallest way in that we can. And what we've done is we experimented a bit during 2022 to verify certificates. Again, coming back to this scanner that we developed, like this thing can scan a qualification. You might have our kids, so our son, 10-year-old, 11-year-old son can scan a qualification, doesn't know anything about maritime, but it will tell him, Jack, it's this qualification, it expires in this time frame. And actually, we've now gone out to the issuer and verified this is a genuine document, that actually holds this document. So we could do that within 5 seconds. And so we realized that doesn't exist in the market right now. There is no way for a business to easily verify all these documents. So the process now is send an email to the issuer, wait for the response and get it back. Or perhaps the issuer has a portal, but then the team needs to know where that portal is, maybe have the login details. So it's all very disjointed.
Manually typing the certificate number and the name or whatever else. Yeah.
And then we realized actually we
Errors everywhere
together and have like that's our route into these big businesses, is create a verification workspace where these businesses, they can use their existing system, but the verification process is all manual outside of that system. So that's where we sit in. We come into this equation. So that's what we're trying to do now, is we're rebuilding the products with a big focus on that, getting that foot in the door to any business with a solution that actually doesn't exist elsewhere.
The funny thing was, this was actually what we actually wanted to build in the first place, was actually a credential management system. So credentials and compliance and all those things that we kind of find exciting. But we actually thought maybe the kind of the market isn't there, so they would want to have a data management system as well, and being able to issue contracts and all these other bits and bobs, which is what we built. And now we've kind of come full circle to realise that what we can do and our USP is this certificate scanning, profiling, going out to verify, and all those other things that go around kind of the compliance angle. So it's brilliant that we've kind of been able to come full circle while still having clients using kind of the bigger product and getting great feedback on it, and being able to sell that to kind of the smaller clients. So it feels like we've kind of ticked loads of boxes that we didn't realize we were going to.
How did you figure out that this compliance thing, coming back full circle, like, were you talking to, was it data? What was sort of the aha moment there? What led you to that realization that actually, we need to go back to basics of the thing we really care about, which is this certification system.
Yeah, I think towards the end of 2022, we realised we wanted to, or we needed to make some changes. We're very fortunate we met somebody that has been quite a good sort of marketeer, strategist, and I didn't realise actually I've gotten introduced from somebody who we knew. I didn't realise actually I've been training, been doing football coaching, like soccer coaching, with this guy. The year below me, he was looking after the kids. I was looking after all the kids. We were right there together. I didn't even ask him what he did. He didn't know what I did, but we were like mates there. And we got an introduction and found out what he was doing. So off the back of that, he's just been so helpful. Like, we've really spent the time sort of analysing all the customer segments we have, looking at them, looking at their pain points, what they want, where's that common thread that what we can do is common for all those stakeholders, and actually what's going to generate the easiest amount of revenue for us. Like, if we were trying to get, what we're trying to do, we're trying to focus on growth or revenue, and for us it's a bit of both, but and we are understanding where we need to focus most of our time, and off the back of that, I think there's a big reason why we started to sort of rebuild part of these products with a stronger focus on that verification, product-led growth approach. Once they're in the door using that, then yeah, they might want to use more of the system and then jump on the next pricing tier up. So I think that was a big moment, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was just being able to define what the vision and the mission is for the business, what the USPs are. Why would somebody take the risk of trying something new, or spending all that time and effort moving data from one system to another, changing processes, all of those things that are involved in kind of a digital transformation? Why would they do that, and why would they do it to come onto our product? And it was because of these USPs of credential management, which is, as you say, that's kind of the core of what we do.
There's a theme here, folks. If you've been paying attention to my shows these last few weeks, you'll notice that audience research is incredibly powerful. So hats off to you both. You're ahead of the curve, and way to learn some acronyms over there, Dan. I think you're going to find yourself in the marketing world someday. PLG, a little product-led growth there.
He got some qualified leads in there as well earlier. I was very proud.
Yes, he did. Look at you go. I think that's such a great, I think the way you're thinking about this is incredibly thoughtful in regards to, what do people need right now? What do we have that can help them get started in a really simple way? And then, we can work with them over time. And to have a product that's built like that is there's so many companies that are trying to like go backwards, like where they've sort of built this behemoth and now they're thinking about PLG and they got to backtrack, and like the struggle is real. So hats off to you in getting there sooner than later. So you have your ideal customer profile. Go throw some more acronyms at you, Dan, to start memorizing. So you got your ICP and you have some clear needs for them. Now, how are you working to get in front of those smaller potential customers with this clear opportunity to help them out? What avenues are you taking to do that?
Quite a few different avenues, some of which are kind of like the social media platforms. So I use LinkedIn and the Sales Navigator on LinkedIn to sort of find people who are sort of, as you say, on the ICP, what we can offer them. We've worked really, really hard on our messaging for what segment of the maritime industry are you in? Are you in super yachting, or are you in oil transportation? Because the messaging is very different for those two sectors. What are your pain points, and what can we deliver to you? How can we make your life better? So we've spent a lot of time looking at sort of the entire maritime industry, cutting it down by segment and also by sector. So what do you do? Are you a recruiter? Are you a crew manager? Are you a training provider? And again, looking at their pain points and being able to really target those with messaging. And it's not just sort of like written word messaging, because how many cold call emails do you get on a sort of a daily basis? So that is obviously sort of one way of getting in front of people. But with the cold call email, if it's short and sharp and you've got a link to sort of a nice either PDF or a video, so we use Canva, for example, to be able to kind of produce just nice visuals that kind of say enough to be able to hook somebody, get that interest. Not give them the entire sort of spiel about why it's fantastic and what it's going to do, how it's going to revolutionize their life, but just give them enough to know that they want to ask us more. So that's been kind of I'd say one of the main strategies. I have to say social media has never been my strong point. So it's something that in a founder-led business where you've got sort of 3 founders and some very lovely sort of, staff that part-time do kind of specific roles, we've relied on learning ourselves, and also sort of the support of sort of friends and family and people who live up the road who do a bit of sort of social media management for us. So yeah, it's a kind of a bag of all things, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the other side of it is this is all just to kickstart the momentum about what the product is, to get more people using it. But I think that one of the really appealing things about the business that a lot of like, we've got 4 investors, but the investors found really appealing, and other people we've spoken to, is here's another buzz term, is the network effect, potentially. So because we have these 2 products, and the product for Crew will always be free, so it's always going to be free for them to manage their documentation. And like we were saying earlier in this podcast, these Crew, they move from business to business. So right now, the business workspace we have, we help these clients migrate their information, put it all into the Crewdentials workspace. And when they're ready with it, at that point, they then send the invites out to the crew members. So at this point, we might have 100 extra signups, 1,000, several thousand signups of these crew. And this does a couple of things. One, for the business, it's like a huge cleansing exercise, because they've got all this static old data they've got on the crew member. They put it into an account and send it out to the crew member. Goes, oh, I don't live there anymore. This is my new address. Oh, this is my phone number. And that qualification's expired. Here's the new one. So they're getting all this data back into the system really quickly. But what's really beneficial for us is, as that crew member, ultimately they're going to leave at some point, move on to a different business. And when they go to their next business, they'll be like, oh, can you send me my qualifications? And I said, yeah, here's a link. Here's my Crewdentials profile with all my qualifications here. You can download them to give me approval. And then this business, then hopefully we're looking at go, oh, this is great. Okay, we need to learn more about Crewdentials, and it starts going that way. So really, the marketing for us right now is just to kickstart that network effect, because we know it's going to happen, and it's starting to happen a little bit, but we need to grow a little bit more to really see the true benefits of that.
I think that's so, it really is people to people at the end of the day, right? When it's business to business, and wow, like this beautiful web you get to build in that, having users on one side, the crew members on one side, and then the businesses on the other, and allowing them to essentially build that connector over time, I think is going to be really cool to watch. I'm like on the edge of my seat. It's going to be great. And I love it sounds like you're all being really patient. Like you sound really calm. But there feels like there's truth in it. Like you believe there's truth in this, that there's a calm to this that it feels like it brings. Like, yeah,
absolutely. The thing that really drives us on is the feedback we're getting, even though like we haven't reached the heights yet of what we know this business can achieve. It's the feedback we're getting from people. That was the other day. There was it wasn't the other day. It was a few months back. But Ellie sent out we're just looking at qualifying the leads, and sent out an email to somebody, it's a recruitment company. This person goes, I know Crewdentials. I signed up back in September 2020. It was one of our first sign-ups. Organically found out about Crewdentials, signed up. I said it was a game changer. It really helped me out for my career. Massive big fan of you guys. And we're just like, wow. Okay, we're trying to do an introductory email here.
Yeah, and it's those little bits of feedback that you get, which are just really reassuring that we are doing the right thing. Because as you say, Kerry, we are being very patient with this. But the reason you can be patient is because we have absolute belief that this is a great product, but more importantly, it's actually the right thing to do. Being able to kind of give seafarers control of their own information, their own data, their own career, and what we can do on the back of that. So giving them career paths. You're currently this on this vessel. If you do this course, which we can connect you with a training provider, you can then go on and try and get this job. Or there's so much we can do that it's kind of becoming a bit of a mission, really, isn't it? That success for us in the business isn't kind of defined by sort of a multi-million-pound valuation in X years or 10 times growth or whatever it is, because we have the faith that this is the right thing to do, that it is actually a sustainable business, and it will achieve what we want it to achieve, which is just being, as I say, a great sustainable business.
So where are you going from here? Are you just you're working on V2, I believe, right? So are you how are you adding feature set, or are you holding, like, okay, you have this core product, you just want to make that core product better? Are you getting feedback of what features are needed? How are you sort of thinking about like moving through, what does the next stage sort of look like?
Yeah. So on the sort of the product roadmap side, it's really, we realized our V1, V2 systems, that the first version, very, very comprehensive. It's very good. Clients are very happy using it. But we realized there's quite a few enhancements that we wanted to make. So our ticketing system was getting quite big, of not bugs, but just enhancements we wanted to make. And there were two quite sizable projects we wanted to introduce into the system. But this system, like we were originally saying, is like we developed this and we sort of followed what we thought was a good sort of route to go down, like following one customer segment type, what they might want. And we realized if we could land 2 or 3 of these customers, then we could reach that sustainable point in the business. We wouldn't need any more investment. So we were trying to sort of focus on trying to get a few big clients on board. And I think that's probably the wrong approach, and it took us a little bit further away from really where we're going now. Our core. And it's really good when you look back. I've got them up on the shelf over there. Our original concepts that we drew, myself, Ellie, James, when he came around here, we're working away on this late at night, looking at things. They're even called the same things we're calling our V2 now, and the whole process is exactly like we're rebuilding now. So I think I'm not saying we got distracted, not at all, but we followed what we thought was probably the best route to reach that profitability point. And then we sort of soon realized that's probably not our best opportunity. We've now changed that, focused on the V2, which, like we're saying, is actually it's a more simple product in a way, but it's so feature rich that I feel like it's going to be a much easier sell.
And it's the difference between providing lots of things to one segment or one thing to lots of segments, and that's so whenever we're kind of wondering where something comes on the roadmap, we kind of come back to, is it something that we will enhance the experience for all of these segments? If no, then it probably kind of comes at sort of stage 1, stage 2, after we've kind of got MVP of our V2 coming. And so that's been a really, really interesting process. And again, it comes back to having segmented the market and knowing what it is we can deliver to these people and what the value is of each of these individual things. Because if we had our like an unlimited budget, an unlimited dev team, and your husband for 9 till 5 every day of the year, then we have a humongous amount of things that we would want to build, and some really exciting stuff. And sometimes it's quite hard to kind of rein yourself in, because you're like, but that would be really cool, and so it'd be really exciting. Be like, but it's one segment and it does one thing for those, as opposed to kind of this one to many that we can produce.
Yeah, I think the big complication with the products we've got, which is why if people look at them, they might think they're very simple. And this is a comment James sort of said when he's sort of 3/4 of the way through the build of V2, and he's almost a little bit disappointed. He was like, I've spent months building this, and look at it. It's quite simple. I said, no, James, that's blooming brilliant. It's behind the scenes. There are so many rules, and like it's so that the big thing that we're doing differently to other businesses or other like HR systems is any HR system. If you think about it, if you invite your employee to collaborate within that business, you're basically giving them access to your system.
You're basically making your admin easier. You're kind of delegating some work onto the employee, aren't you?
Yeah. So it's a portal for that crew member that employee to manage some of the data that business is looking after. But then if that employee then works for a different business that might even be using the same software, they have to create a separate profile, put their information again a second time, because it's the business's copy of the data. And the big thing we're doing differently, and this stems right back to the very day one, is it's the crew members' data. So it's the user's data. So that's why we want to create that account where they can put all their information in, and it's independent to them. So they're the ones in control of it. They can share a copy with a business, but that means when that crew member leaves that first business, the last example, they take everything with them. The business still gets a copy of what they had at the time, but that live link separates and then moves to the next business. All that information just sinks in within seconds. You don't have to retype everything. So it's a bit like some mentioned about PayPal, how they sort of changed the way payments are made. So instead of putting all your information, your financial information into every different website, you've got your PayPal wallet. You put your credit cards in there, store them, keep them up to date. Come to a new merchant, make the transaction. It's sort of the same as what we're trying to do with Crewdentials, Seafarer Crewdentials. Is that Seafarer stores all their information in their wallet. Whenever they come to a different business, they can make an interaction and provide that information there as well. So that's added so much complexity to the build of V1 and V2. So on the face of it, it might look quite simple, but behind the scenes, we haven't really come across any other business that's done that type of build before. And that's why it's been fantastic having Damien, your husband, sort of coming in and really helping us and James with the architecture for this second version, really think about all these rules, which is very, very complicated. So I think if it wasn't for Damien and James, I don't think we'd be
where we are. No.
Not at all.
It's in my experience, it's so much harder to do things simple and right. And so it seems like you have this amazing accumulation of these things. The back end is incredibly complicated to make it work so well and so easy. That user experience is everything. So I'm so excited for you both. And James, what an amazing product. I love your office. They have this gorgeous office at the very top of one of it's on the high street, and it just it's like it overlooks the harbor, so you can see all the boats coming in, and your startup story is amazing. I'm so grateful you joined me in sharing it. If people are interested in learning more about both of you, James and Crewdentials, where can they find you?
So we've got website is crewdentials.com. I am regularly on LinkedIn, so Ellen Armsden. I think there's only one of me on there with that name on LinkedIn. So always happy to get in touch, whether that is people at whatever stage of their founder journey, because the network that you create of people that are in similar positions is just invaluable. The ability to have completely honest conversations with people and not be trying to pretend that everything's perfect and rosy and it was really, really easy. Just to be able to have those, oh my God, moments with kind of fellow founders it's invaluable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been absolutely brilliant. Like I said, just get in touch. It's on the website, crewdentials.com, or LinkedIn, or email address is dan@crewdentials.com or hello@crewdentials.com. But no, the whole startup journey has been brilliant. Really, really enjoy it. It's been incredible meeting so many amazing people. It's been a fantastic journey so far.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much. Thank you to our listeners. If you like this show, please like, subscribe, and share. This episode is brought to you by MKG Marketing, the digital marketing agency that helps complex B2B companies get found via SEO, digital ads, and analytics. The show is hosted by me, Carrie Gard, CEO and co-founder of MKG Marketing. And if you're a startup and you want to come on and tell your startup story, I'd love to hear it. DM me. Let's hang out. Thank you, Dan and Ellie. I'm so grateful.
Brilliant. Thanks, Carrie.
Bye.